What if the routine you repeat every ordinary morning is quietly shaping your cancer risk more than the checkup you rely on? And what if the biggest prevention mistake after 50 is
That
believing
checkup
screening can
reminder
do
is
work your
vital.
daily life still
But
has
are
to
you
do?
doing
I'm a
enough
practicing
between
medical
appointments?
oncologist, and I see this
Understanding your
prevention gap
cancer risk
constantly
is
in
the
adults
first
over
step.
50.
Look at this
Let me explain it
visualization.
in plain everyday language for you
Together,
today,
we can take
because
control
this
of your
matters
health.
deeply. Today, I'll show you one simple daily habit many careful people still underestimate after 50, far too often, for far too long. Stay with me, because the most common mistake inside this habit is easier to make than most people realize. Welcome and thank you for being here. After 50, your margin for error gets smaller with time, stress, routine, and daily neglect. That happens quietly.
The doctor's
Advancing
appointment
age is the
scheduled,
strongest
but her
overall
walking
risk
shoes
factor for
remain
cancer,
untouched.
which is
It's a
exactly why
common
ordinary
challenge for
prevention
many
habits
adults over
become more
55.
important, not
I
less.
want to talk about
Too many
something
people think
crucial.
prevention begins when a scan
Regular
is booked,
screenings can
a blood
save
test is
lives.
ordered, or a
Please
specialist visit
prioritize your
appears on the
health.
calendar.
The
Detection
biopsy
matters
results
deeply,
confirm the
but it is not
diagnosis.
the whole
We
prevention
need to
story people
discuss
need
the
to
treatment
understand.
options
Real
immediately to
prevention
ensure
often
the
looks
best
smaller,
outcome.
plainer, and easier to dismiss in everyday life at home. It happens in kitchens, on sidewalks, in parking lots, and in the choices made between excuses. American Cancer Society researchers reported a striking finding. 4 in 10 cancer cases and nearly half
The
of
scans
cancer
look
deaths
very
in
clear.
adults were linked to
Everything seems to be
modifiable
in
risk
order,
factors.
but keep
That
up the
finding
healthy
should stop us
habits.
cold for a moment and make us think more carefully. It means daily patterns still matter long before anyone hears frightening words in a sterile room. It also means this conversation is not abstract, theoretical, or optional anymore for anyone watching now. The habit is movement. Done consistently, it can reduce sedentary time and support
Early
healthier
detection
weight
can
and
increase the
steadier
survival
metabolic
rate
balance.
to over
Many people hear that and
75%
downgrade
for
it because it
adults
does not
50 and
sound
older.
medical or complicated enough. That is exactly where the trap begins for many people watching this at first. What feels ordinary can still be powerful to the body when it is
Walking
repeated
is
for
just too
years.
simple.
After 50,
I need
the
something
body
more
usually
intense than
becomes
that.
less forgiving with blood sugar handling, body composition, low-grade inflammation, circulation, and recovery from long sedentary stretches. You may feel mostly fine, and that is exactly why this gets missed so often. A person can stay busy, answer messages, run errands, prepare meals, and still spend most of the day sending the body one harmful message. The message is simple:
Risk more.
move less with each passing day and risk more over time. Then repeat it tomorrow. This is why I do not frame this as vanity, fitness, or motivation alone today. I frame it as a prevention issue because inactivity rarely arrives alone in real life. It often travels with weight gain, weaker insulin response, poorer sleep, higher inflammation,
So that's
and the
the
quiet
plan,
story
30
people tell
minutes of
themselves
walking
about starting
and then
later.
some stretching.
Later gradually
It
becomes
really
a
makes a
habit the body
difference.
must live with for years
Understanding why
ahead,
mornings are
and
key
habits
for a consistent
accumulate.
routine
Here is the
starts here.
mistake.
Small
It is not
cues,
failing
daily
to
repetition,
exercise perfectly
simple,
every
powerful.
single day
Let's
for
look at how.
years. It is assuming one hard workout once in a while can erase a mostly inactive day and all the hours surrounding it. Most of the time, it simply cannot do that
While
for
a
the older
single
body.
intense workout is
Consistency
beneficial,
speaks
it
louder
cannot
to the
fully
body than
counteract
heroics
the
do,
effects of prolonged
especially after
inactivity
50
throughout the rest
and
of your
especially
day.
over time. So if you are already thinking, I am not an athlete, that is actually the right starting point. You are not being asked to become one. You do not need an extreme plan, a punishing plan, or a glamorous plan. You need a believable plan that still works when motivation drops, weather changes, joints ache, or the day gets crowded. That is real prevention. In just a moment, I'm going to break this habit into the parts that matter most. I'll explain what weakens it, why mornings matter, and what to start doing tomorrow. Near the end, I'll also share a fresh 10-second tip older adults can use to make this routine easier to keep every day. It is practical enough to use that same day, even at home, and worth waiting for. So remember this before we go further. Cancer prevention after 50 is not passive, not pointless, and not limited to medical appointments. It is built, quietly, by what you repeat every single ordinary day of life. Almost no one thinks a 2-minute walk matters that much. After 50, it matters more than it seems. At number 5 is the habit of refusing to stay planted after meals. Many adults dismiss that sleepy chair time as harmless or even deserved, especially after breakfast or dinner. But one of the quietest cancer-friendly conditions is spending long stretches in a body that keeps seeing repeated glucose surges, high insulin signals, and very little muscle demand. Your muscles are not just for movement. They act like a second glucose tank. When they stay idle, more of the work stays in the bloodstream, and that can support the kind of metabolic strain linked to several common cancers. This is where aging changes the equation. After 50, many people lose muscle, gain abdominal fat, and become less metabolically flexible even when their weight has not changed dramatically. So the same meal, followed by the same hour of sitting, may create more internal stress than it did at 35. Large prevention research has repeatedly tied regular movement and lower sedentary time to better cancer risk patterns, especially through body weight control, insulin handling, and inflammation balance. That is not abstract science. It shows up in ordinary afternoons. There is another reason this matters. Sitting too long after meals often pushes fat storage toward the abdomen, and abdominal fat is not inert. It behaves more like an endocrine organ, releasing signals that can keep insulin higher and inflammatory traffic busier. In oncology, we watch those long-term conditions closely because cancer risk is rarely built by one dramatic moment. It is more often built by a body receiving the same disadvantage, quietly and repeatedly, year after year. I think about a patient who told me he exercised every morning, so he assumed the rest of the day did not matter. Then we looked at his routine. Breakfast, then the recliner. Lunch, then the car. Dinner, then television. His workout was real, but so was the sitting. The practical shift is simple. After each main meal, stand up and move for 5 to 10 minutes, even if it is just inside your home. Use the sink, the hallway, the porch, the mailbox. Keep it easy, but make it consistent. That one pattern helps your body clear fuel more smoothly. And it prepares the ground for number 4, because the next protection is not just about moving calories. It is about feeding the bacteria and fibers that shape what those calories become. Most people think prevention foods have to be exotic. They do not. At number 4 is quietly underestimated food science, building at least one high-fiber, minimally processed meal every day. The mistake is not only eating sugar, it is eating food so stripped down that your gut microbes, blood sugar, and appetite signals all get a rougher ride. Fiber does more than help the bathroom. Certain fibers are fermented by gut bacteria into compounds such as butyrate, and those compounds help support the lining of the colon, immune signaling, and a less chaotic metabolic environment. That matters because colon cancer risk rises with age, and metabolic disease often travels with it. A highly processed, healthy meal can look neat on the label while doing very little for that deeper biology. You see this after 50 inches very believable routines. Instant oatmeal loaded with sweeteners, brand-flavored bars, low-fat snacks that are mostly starch. A large prospective diet literature has linked higher intake of fiber-rich whole plant foods with better long-term cancer outcomes and lower colorectal risk patterns. The image I use is simple. Processed food burns like paper, while real fiber behaves more like slow kindling. Fiber also changes contact time inside the gut. When food is mostly refined, transit can slow, fullness becomes unreliable, and the colon may spend more time exposed to a poorer quality mixture of leftovers, bile acids, and low-diversity microbial byproducts. That does not mean one packaged snack is dangerous. It means a pattern can drift in the wrong direction without much warning. This is one reason prevention guidance keeps coming back to real plant foods. They do mechanical work, microbial work, and metabolic work at the same time. One woman told me she had switched to packaged wellness snacks because they looked safer than a sandwich, but she was constantly hungry by late afternoon and ate the most at night. Her food was tidy, her biology was not. So make one meal each day, obviously fibrous and real. Beans, lentils, oats, vegetables, berries, intact grains, nuts, seeds. Let the plate look like it came from a kitchen, not a wrapper. Then use a synergy rule. The more fiber you eat earlier, the easier number 3 becomes, because hunger gets quieter when your day stops acting like a roller coaster. At number 3, the familiar habit is not what you eat, but when your body is forced to deal with it. Many people still believe late eating is only a weight issue. It is wider than that. Your organs run on timing. Insulin sensitivity, digestive efficiency, melatonin release, and cell repair signaling are not equally strong all day long. When eating keeps sliding later into the evening, especially after 50, the body is more likely to face fuel at the wrong biological hour. That can mean higher nighttime glucose, poorer sleep, more reflux, and a longer stretch of recovery that never fully becomes recovery. Cancer biology is complicated, but one repeated theme in the literature is that circadian disruption and chronic metabolic disturbance can create a less protective internal setting. This is where people get fooled. They think, I barely eat all day, so my late dinner should not matter. But the body does not only count food, it also reads clocks. Observational work and circadian research have raised concern that irregular late eating patterns may worsen weight control, insulin regulation, and other pathways relevant to cancer risk. It is not proof that one late supper causes cancer. It is a warning that timing can keep stacking disadvantage. For many adults over 50, this is intensified by retirement routines, caregiving stress, or medications that already disturb sleep and appetite. A late eating pattern can begin innocently: a small snack while cleaning up, a second snack while watching the news, then a larger real meal because the day felt chaotic. Suddenly, the body spends the very hours meant for repair doing digestion instead. That mismatch may seem ordinary, but repeated often enough, it can train the whole system toward poorer control. I remember a man in his 60s who felt proud that he skipped breakfast. Then he would eat his biggest meal near 10 at night, snack while checking email, and sleep badly. He thought he had discipline. What he really had was delayed strain. The fix is not extreme fasting. It is a respectful eating window. Try to finish dinner 2 to 3 hours before bed most nights, and keep your meal timing fairly predictable. If you need something later, keep it small and simple rather than sugary and heavy. Pair this with number 4 by making the earlier meals more satisfying. And that brings us to number 2, where the right plant food becomes more than a side dish. It becomes a deliberate tool. Here is where aging changes the equation again. At number 2, the anti-cancer habit is using cruciferous vegetables on purpose, not casually. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, bok choy, arugula, and similar vegetables contain natural compounds that can be turned into isothiocyanates, including sulforaphane. These compounds have been studied for their role in detoxification, enzyme activity, oxidative stress balance, and cell defense pathways. In plain English, they seem to help the body process damage more intelligently. But the real mistake is not the food itself, it is how people use it. They eat a tiny amount once in a while, cook it to exhaustion, or rely on supplements and assume that is the same thing. After 50, that precision matters more because the body is managing more exposures with less reserve. More medications, more visceral fat, more cumulative inflammation, more years of DNA wear. Mechanistic research and human feeding studies have made cruciferous vegetables one of the most consistently interesting food groups in cancer prevention conversations. Not magic, not a shield, but a meaningful nutritional weapon. Preparation detail matters here because prevention is often lost in translation. People hear that vegetables are good, then they either eat them rarely or turn them into a side note buried under processed food, or they buy a supplement and assume the job is done. Food does not work that way. The compounds inside cruciferous vegetables arrive inside a package that also carries fiber, minerals, water, and meal displacement. In practice, that means the vegetable helps partly by what it gives and partly by what it replaces. I had a patient who said she hated healthy food, but when we broke it down, she mainly hated bland food. We changed the method, not the goal. Quick sautéed cabbage with garlic, roasted cauliflower with olive oil, chopped broccoli in an egg scramble. Suddenly, the habit became realistic. So here is the preparation detail that people remember. Chop broccoli or similar vegetables, let them sit for about 10 minutes, then cook them lightly. That pause can help preserve the enzyme action that supports sulforaphane formation. Aim to bring one cruciferous vegetable into daily rotation instead of treating it like a guest appearance. And connect it to number 1, because even very protective foods work better in a body that still honors its repair cycle. What the research has been building toward is this: the master regulator is not a pill, a superfood, or a cleanse. It is protecting your daily sleep and light rhythm. This sounds almost too basic, which is why people underestimate it. Yet after 50, poor sleep is not just fatigue. It can mean disrupted melatonin timing, weaker overnight repair, worse insulin handling, stronger hunger signals, higher stress hormones, and more immune confusion. Sleep is when the body is supposed to switch lanes from input to maintenance. When that window keeps getting cut short by bright screens, inconsistent bedtimes, late meals, alcohol, or a bedroom that still feels like daytime, repair stays unfinished. Cancer prevention is never one pathway, but sleep touches many of them at once. It influences body weight, blood sugar, inflammation control, hormone rhythms, DNA repair support, and even how motivated you feel to do every other protective habit the next day. That is why number one earns its place. It coordinates the rest. Several major scientific reviews have linked chronic, short, or disrupted sleep and shift-like circadian misalignment with less favorable cancer risk patterns. Again, not simple cause and effect, but very hard to dismiss. This is also why people who focus only on supplements often feel disappointed. You can take something from a bottle and still live against your own biology every night. Sleep is not passive. During healthy sleep, the brain and body coordinate hormone timing, tissue maintenance, immune organization, and memory processing in a predictable rhythm. That rhythm helps the next day go better. Better sleep often means fewer cravings, better portion control, steadier mood, and more willingness to move. In other words, the master regulator keeps recruiting allies. I think of a woman who told me she wanted to eat better for cancer prevention, yet she was sleeping 5 broken hours with the television on. By evening, she craved processed food, skipped walks, and ate late because her whole day felt off. Her problem was not lack of caring. Her timing system was collapsing. So here is the practical version. Keep the same wake time most days. Get outdoor morning light into your eyes within the first hour when possible. Dim the house at night. Protect the last hour before bed from bright screens, heavy meals, and emotional chaos. Make the bedroom cool, dark, and boring. Boring is good. And here is the fresh 0-second tip I want older adults to remember. Every night, before you sit down for the last time, do one fast reset. Set your bedside lamp low, put your phone to charge outside arm's reach, and ask, "Have I ended the kitchen?" That takes about 10 seconds, but it closes 3 major risk doors at once: light, late eating, and mindless scrolling. When these habits work together, the pattern becomes powerful. A short walk after meals improves fuel handling. Fiber steadies the day. Earlier eating protects the night. Cruciferous vegetables strengthen the quality of the plate. Good sleep and light timing organize the whole system. That is not perfection. It is biology given a better environment. And after 50, that is exactly what prevention often looks like. And one more point. These habits are not competing with screening. They support it. Mammograms, colonoscopies, skin checks, and follow-up visits matter, but biology is still lived between appointments. Prevention is what happens on ordinary Tuesdays, not just in medical buildings. What we walked through today was not a list of miracle tricks. It was a map. Move after meals, build a fiber-rich meal, eat earlier, use cruciferous vegetables with intention, and protect sleep and light rhythm. Different habits, yes, but one message. After 50, cancer prevention is often less about dramatic rescue and more about giving your cells a steadier daily environment. Less chaos, better timing, more repair, fewer repeated signals pushing the body in the wrong direction. That is the real hope in this conversation. It also means this is not about blame. Many people were never taught that ordinary routines can shape long-term cancer risks so quietly. They were told to wait for symptoms, screenings, or bad news. But your daily life still matters deeply. And the good news is that these habits do not ask you to become perfect overnight. They ask you to begin. One walk, one earlier dinner, one darker bedroom, one smarter plate. Small actions, repeated long enough, can help create a body that is harder to push off balance. That is the philosophy underneath all 5 habits. You are not chasing perfect purity. You are lowering avoidable strain and raising your body's chance to repair, regulate, and recognize problems. That is a dignified goal and a realistic one. At any age, that matters for more than disease statistics. It matters for independence. It matters for clear mornings, steadier energy, and staying present for the people you love. It matters for being able to live your life, not just manage your fear. So if this message helped you, please share it with someone over 50 who may need this reminder. Subscribe if you want more plain English, doctor-led guidance that turns complex science into practical daily protection. And in the comments, tell me which habit you will start first or which one feels hardest right now. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of your body kindly, consistently, and without panic. Every new morning is still a chance to protect your future. That chance is worth using.